We're all good to go. Good morning, everyone. Hope you all had an enjoyable break. So back to the excitement then. The minutes of the previous meeting on the 15th of December, are we all happy with the minutes? Okay, thank you. Happy with that. Apologies for absence. Noel?
Yes, with apologies from Councillors Garner and Daniel Williamson, both for medical illness reasons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest by members and officers. Do any members or officers present have a disclosable pecuniary interest to declare? You think they'd change the word in, wouldn't you? Or do any members or officers present have any private interests, either pecuniary or non-pecuniary, to declare? Any interest to declare? Glyn, yes.
Inspire, Chairman.
I'm inspired already, so I better declare the same, so thank you. If you note that, please, no. Thank you. Item 4 then is the fees and charges for 2022 and 2023 for the libraries, archives and information. So before I hand over to Peter and Kirsty, I propose the recommendation on page 8 to approve the fees and charges set out in Appendix 1 and 2 of the report for 2022-23 with implementation from the 1st of April 2023. I'm happy to propose that recommendation. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you. Over to Peter / Kirsty.
Thank you, John. Yeah,
you.
just introduce Kirsty Blythe, who's the Assistant Chief Executive of Inspire and also leads the operation and management of the library service. So Kirsty might answer any really difficult questions. So this is a report we bring to committee each year, which lays out our fees and charges and highlights any changes that we're proposing for your approval. So we make a consideration both for libraries and archives in the current climate in terms of what fees and charges we can levy within the legislation that we're allowed to levy charges. Ostensibly, of course, the library service and the archive service is a free service at the point of use. So the proposals are listed out in Appendix 1 for libraries and Appendix 2, and you'll see any changes that are proposed are actually in bold print, so you can see those. So for libraries, an increase of charges for some out-of-hour hire of libraries to reflect increased utility charges. And we've done a review of our meeting room charges, including some local market research to make sure that we're pitching them at the right level for the local community. And some increased changes at Mansfield and West Bridgeford. And then for archives, changes are mainly related to just price increases through inflation for things like postage and other charges that are passed on to us from other suppliers like National Archives and the Church of England, etc. So it's a really straightforward report today, and happy to take any questions or comments.
Only easy ones though, Peter, aren't they?
Well, for me, yes, but Kirsty can answer any particularly technical.
Thank you. Okay. Any committee members wish to make a comment or questions? Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the officers for this report and welcome the fact that there's no huge price rises apart from the minor ones outlined in Appendix 1. And I welcome the price differential between commercial use of the libraries that benefits community groups and not-for-profit organisations. How are these charges and cut price availability promoted to, in the community for these groups? And also, what happens if an organisation or group wants to book a room in the library on a day that the library is shut? Are we missing a potential revenue stream there? And finally, if, say, the police or the DWP want to use the libraries, will they be charged at the same rate as Notts County Council and the not-for-profit organisations, or will they be at the full commercial rate? Thank you.
So in terms of marketing, yes, we market through our website and in the individual libraries. I don't think we currently have a leaflet, but in the past we've had leaflets, so there'll be information in the libraries. And of course we've been doing this for a long time, so a lot of groups rebook, and we saw that after we reopened after the restrictions, that a lot of groups came back. Sorry, your second question was? Yes, so we have been developing an offer to try and encourage use of libraries when they're closed. Some of our smaller libraries where they're closed. So there's two ways of approaching that. We make an arrangement with some organisations. So with some organisations, we've got a memorandum of understanding where they will have access to keys and they will get into the building and they hire it as a block. So we do that with ABL Health, for example. For individual organisation, we'd make local arrangements for them. So it depends on if they want a one-off or if they want a regular booking on the arrangements. But we're quite keen to make that happen. So that's something we're promoting. And then in terms of organisations that are non-profit, like the DWP, then they would be charged a non-commercial rate.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. So we've got a 12-sided document, and within that, actually, there's very little change, and often the changes are very, very small. I mean, some of the printing's going up by 20p. £2.50 here, £5 there. I appreciate this is something we've got to do, but I think we've done it in a very good way, in that it doesn't or it won't impact people in any significant way at all. On page 9, we specifically talk about doing this in a way that doesn't create a barrier to access, and I think that's very important that we are doing that, and I think that is successfully done in this report.
Thank you very much. Any other? Okay, thank you. Do you want to come back at all, Peter? Or, yes, thank you. Okay, he's happy. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so we'll go to the vote then, please. Those in favour of the recommendation, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Kirsty. Item 5 is the approval of applications to the COVID-19 Partnership Social Recovery Fund and the Community Hub Food Plan Fund. And I would like to ask Mark, please. Have I got the right one? Yes.
Yes,
I have. Thank you. Over to Mark. Thank you.
thank you, Chair. Morning, all. Members will recall from previous committee meetings receiving progress reports regarding these two funds, and hopefully members will also recall the partnership approach to how projects are identified and approved. In summary, applications for over £5,000 for both funds require approval by this committee. Applications for under £5,000 can be approved by members of the Local Resilience Forum Humanitarian Assistance Group and subsequently brought to this committee for oversight. In Appendix 1 of today's report, details of those projects reviewed and endorsed by the partnership for over £5,000 are brought, I say, to the committee for approval today, and there's a total of £77,298 for the Social Recovery Fund, £213,261 for the Food Fund. In Appendix 2 provides the details of those projects 5,000 or under that have already been approved, and there's a total of 6,905 for the Social Recovery Fund, 14,144 of Food Fund ones there. If all applications over 5,000 are approved today for the Social Recovery Fund, that will mean we'd have spent £1 million of the original £1 million budget. And for the Food Plan Fund, we would have spent £682,368 of the original 800,000 fund. Because the Social Recovery Fund original budget will have all been applied, if members approve today's application set out in the report, it's proposed that the budget for the fund be increased by £500,000. As ever, happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. The recommendations are 1, approves the application for funding recommended in Appendix A to the report. Number 2, reviews the applications that have received partnership approval at Appendix 2 of the report. Number 3, that the budget for the COVID-19 Social Recovery Fund be increased by £500,000 to £1.5 million for 2021-2022, and the fund be reopened temporarily to accept new applications. And 4, that the Community Hub Food Fund be closed to new applications and the remainder of this fund be allocated to a future meeting of this committee. So I'll propose that recommendation. Can I ask for a seconder, please? Thanks.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if any committee members wish to speak? Councillor Allen, thank you.
Just to commend you for giving We Are Here some money. They do a sterling job and are pretty vital in the Gedling community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Chair. Just on, obviously, I'm going to be parochial because there are two issues. Although fully support what we're doing across the board, but on parochial point, the BCVS funding, which is a significant amount. Just on what we expect, it would be interesting to get some feedback at the end of that. Ultimately for the committee, because one of the and also in my own opinion, it ought to have been for a longer period, because I'm presuming that is for 1 year. Is it? I'm looking because it doesn't specifically say that, but I mean, from my point of view, is the supporting and sort of reinvigorating some of the voluntary sector that actually fell by the wayside because of COVID, because they couldn't carry out a lot of the duties, because it meant a lot of them organising people to meet, and those meetings, as we know, were back. Oh, I know the Prime Minister didn't know, but we know that they were banned. But so therefore they didn't take place, and in some cases that has meant the management and the leadership of those voluntary sector groups probably, became dysfunctional. So I'm really happy in Bassett Law that this is sort of being looked at. But as I say, I would have hoped it could have been, say, a 2 or a 3 year programme where we were really developing the voluntary sector. And I actually think we should be doing that right across the board in every district as well. Secondly, Chairman, it is obviously the Oasis. It's an absolutely fantastic place, the Oasis, and does some sterling work. And I think what this is going to is absolutely brilliant that we're supporting that even further. And what I would ask, Chairman, is if you've got an opportunity one day to come with me and visit the Oasis, because it is an absolutely fantastic place. It's very diverse in what it offers to people, and it has so many links with other things that we as a council have been supporting. And I think sometimes we sit here and we look at things and we go, oh yeah, that's good, but we don't actually go and see the detail or the end product. And I'd like, if you've got a chance, John, to come in, come in with me and meet Pastor Steve, who runs the organisation, and have a look round and let him tell you a little bit about what he's doing.
I'm pleased to do that, Glyn.
Thank you.
Opportunity. So if we can speak to Claire and sort a date out in the diary, I'm happy to do that.
Thank
and
you.
Then I'll pass the difficult questions over to Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for those questions. So with regards to the point around feedback for community, yes, absolutely. We're currently finalising how we're going to evaluate some of these projects and learn from them. This has been a new and a different approach we've taken with this funding, working with local partners, etc., to evaluate and to put items forward. So, and part of that is that we will be doing evaluation and learning from them. Clearly, with the monies that we have from to do this, they are one-off fundings, if you like. Hence the reason that the original proposals are for 1 year. But I'm sure with the feedback that we get when we evaluate these projects and bring them back to committee, we can take a view in around there, hopefully, with how we might be able to extend these further on. And obviously, this sits within a bigger piece of work that's going on in the county council, these funds, in terms of looking at how we build on the engagement that's happened during the pandemic and work with voluntary and community sector groups in a different way going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I did have some. Yes, Councillor Saddington. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairman. It's not a question. It's more a statement. Looking at these contributions, I think must be and is very acceptable by these groups. If we think back to how we were during COVID, people were separated. They weren't in groups. A lot of people had to stay at home and have been affected by mental health problems. And if we look at this, it's involving food clubs, health, eating fruit and vegetables, all the things that I'm sure Councillor Doddy would be extremely pleased to hear about, that there's health coming into the schools. But above anything else, it's bringing people together and meaning that they can meet up again, and it can only help their mental health. So I think it's wonderful. I think all these groups will be more than relieved to know that they've got this money. And as for growing fruit and vegetables and children being involved, I think it's absolutely wonderful. So well done.
Thank you, Sue. Councillor Adams. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to echo really what Sue said, but also a number of other councillors as well. I think it's really good that we're seeing an increase in budget here. I mean, you know, it's important that we're using this funding that's coming from government to the maximum of its ability and investing it into the places that it was designed for, to ensure that our community groups and the community subsequently are getting that benefit. And I think it's a credit to the council for doing that and finding the way to ensure that money gets spent properly. And we, you know, through very difficult times, we are continuing to support the people of Nottinghamshire, and I think that's something for us all to be very proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Councillor Tom Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Just following on from what Mike said, I think it's important that often something that's overlooked with what we do as a committee and as a council. If we look at the locations of all these groups that we're planning to fund, it starts all the way at the top of the county in Bassetlaw, then goes through Newark and Shield, goes all the way down into Rushcliffe, and each one of the districts is represented just within this list alone. So I think it's worth making the point that, you know, we do cover the county, and we really go, certainly officers go to efforts to make sure that we are covering the county, and I think that's a good point to raise.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those comments. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, we'll go to the vote then. All those in favour, please show. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 6 is the Nottinghamshire Household Support Fund progress. The recommendations on page 43 in the pack, and the recommendations are: 1, ratifies the recruitment of the additional 3 full-time employee temporary posts established within trading standards and community service to administer delivery of the fund, and 2, approves that a further report be brought to the next committee to update and to ratify further developments on the scheme. So I propose that recommendation. Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. And it's the Mark show again. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Members will recall the papers brought to previous committees regarding deploying the 5.6 million of the Household Support Fund monies in the county. This paper sets out any update regarding the action we've taken with partners and the progress that we've made to deploy that funding. It is 3 weeks since the report was drafted, so things have moved on again at some speed. And so I can first of all provide updates to the committee in terms of the monies applied. And so as regards paragraph 9, as at the 24th of January, 6,233 households have now received a total of £477,545, and that's split between 280,713 for food and 196,832 for energy. Approximately a third of that funding has gone to households with children, 2/3 to households without. So I can further update the committee that in terms of essential domestic appliances provided, the update is provided at paragraph 10. As at the 24th of January, 37 appliances have now been provided to the value of just over £8,000. The Partnership Steering Group continues to meet weekly and to reflect on the learning and address issues identified. And again, we're very much focused on deploying all of the funding allocated to those most in need by the end of the funding period. Paragraphs 11 to 16 in the report sets out that the partnership group had identified that the central team required more resource to be able to undertake assessments on those that are in need that aren't known to partners, called those the self-referrers, as it were. Paragraphs say in the report there set out or sets out that we needed to, or the idea of the partners were to bolster the resource within the central team, and I can confirm that the temporary recruitments to the 3 Band A posts identified in the report have now taken place, and 2 out of the 3 have already started working this week in the team. The scheme has also opened to take applications directly. You may have picked up from some of the media work that we've been doing, and that's via there's an online form that people can fill in, or they can phone into our customer services centre now. The other big issue flagged up in the report at the time of writing was based on the assumptions from the learning to that point. We were predicting that 1.6 million of the funding would not be allocated by the end of March. So we've worked with partners to agree how to apply this funding and this amount of money, and 2 key changes have already been made. Firstly, for the holiday food vouchers for February, for those that are in receipt of free school meals, normally we'd be giving £15 voucher out to cover food only. We're going to increase that to £30 voucher, which will, with the extra £15 a contribution to other household costs, as it were. And that would increase our forecast spend in February from 491,500 to predicted 983,000 in February. The second change that we've made is to increase we're going to increase the total value of awards that can be made to each person who is in need. And we're going to do that in terms of the number of vouchers in some cases, or the values of them. And effectively, it will mean that we're going to provide double the amount that we originally were providing with regards to food and energy vouchers. And we're going to do that for those people that come to us going forward, but we're also going to go back and apply an amount of money, 440,000, to those that have already applied. They will have their awards updated. So day 1 of the new scheme, as it were, with the team in place was Monday, and on that day we were able to deploy just over 38,000 make awards of just over 38,000, and that's the highest total we've done in a day so far. Clearly, it's a dynamic situation. This is all based on our best guesses on how things are going to work out. Given the end of March timescale, it means that we need to carefully continue to watch what's happening, keep making those forecasts, and make changes to the scheme in order to, say, get all the money out of the door by the end of March to those that really need it. Okay, I'll stop there, and again, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for the report, Mark. I think just before I open it up to any questions or comments, to thank the team again, both on this item and the previous one, for how quick we've turned things around and how we're working going forward. So please take that back to the team, and I'd like to say thank you to you as well for your conversations over the last week or so to try and get all this into place. So thank you for that. And I'll pass it to the floor if anybody wishes to speak. Councillor Anderson.
Hi, thank you, Chairman. Could I just ask, Mark, with the increase in value of the vouchers, is there an expiry date for when they would have to be used, just so families can budget on how much they spend?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I can give a 100% guaranteed answer to this. I don't think there is an end. I think it might be a month thinking about it, but what I can do is take that question away and get the answer and provide that afterwards, if I may.
Thank you.
Councillor Wheeler, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, echo your words about support for this scheme and the work that officers have done. Just a comment on the press release that went out. So I shared it on a couple of local groups. It came through a local media outlet. Just been for our social media on Facebook, and I can't see anything on there for the last couple of days. Perhaps the comms team to pick that up, and maybe just a briefing to councillors with the link, just so we can share it around our communities. Because I think it's really important that we get that message out wide, and maybe some members of the community aren't looking at the county council, the press releases through mainstream media, but obviously with the community groups most of us are probably on, we can get that message out there to get the people who need to apply. Thank you.
Just to come back on that, the gentleman sitting behind you at the back there, him and I have been prepping things up for after this meeting, so we will be looking at that. Any comment on that, Mark, or are you?
Yeah, no, that's some really useful points there, Councillor Wheeler. Yep, certainly we'll keep reviewing the communications because, yeah, we all want to get the information out effectively to those people that are in immediate need to get those applications in. So we'll look at that certainly.
Thank you, Councillor Guilford.
Thank you. Fully support what's been going on, Chairman. I mean, clearly, COVID has highlighted the state of poverty that's out there within the Nottinghamshire community. COVID's added to that, but there is an underlying problem with poverty in Nottinghamshire, which I think my concern is that once this money is finished, what is going to be there to support the families that are still suffering from poverty, because it's an ongoing problem. It's not going to end on the 31st of March. It's still going to be there. So the question for me is, is there any more money that's going to be made available for the longer term for those individuals? Because they still will be suffering, and we need to be helping. Obviously, I can understand why you've increased the amount of money because of the time issue. I would have sooner, personally, liked it to have rolled over so that we could have given people a longer period of support. And as colleague here has said about being able then to manage their budget better by doing that. And I think that would have been a far more sensible proposition in the longer term. Just in relation to what we've sort of done, I wondered if there's any chance, and I know you're busy and sort of sometimes detailed, but I think it would help us to understand the realities in our own districts. Have you got a breakdown of what's been spent in each district? And I'm not wanting to use that as you've spent more in Ashfield than you have in Bassetlaw, or usually it's the other way around, isn't it? You spent more in Bassetlaw than you have in Ashfield. But what I would say is, from my point of view, because that to me would show me the hidden depth of poverty in each of the districts, it's another indicator of the number of people that we've had to help and support. And again, that would be useful, I'm sure, for many of the other committees, and also for some of the work that, as you just mentioned with Councillor Doddy earlier on, it would help in that vein as well. And it would be, good information, I think, for local members to be aware, what the level is. And again, just the basic numbers, etc., would suffice. And also, when you send us the other details, if you could, the amendments to what's being expended now, if you could send us a picture as of up to date, if that's possible, Mark, because I'm not that quick at writing the numbers down in the boxes. But really support it. Just concerned for the future that once COVID's gone, poverty still exists, and I really do want to see what we're going to do about that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Glenn. I'll pass to Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, great. Thank you for those questions. With regards to the money available and rolling over, well, clearly we're working within the government framework, and it is very clear that the funding period ends on the 31st of March. So we have to deploy the funding by that point. Yeah, I do have that. I do have the information regarding distribution across districts. That obviously can share with colleagues, and again can give an update regarding the current situation regarding the data, so that you can see that as well. It ranges at the moment, for example, by districts in terms of the vouchers applied only. This is not the free school meals, but Ashfield, for example, has received the applications 24.85%, so nearly a quarter of the pot has gone into Ashfield. In Bassetlaw, it's running at 7.7% at the moment. But again, we're working with colleagues to with this data in order to make sure that anybody out there in immediate need comes forward. But yeah, certainly can update can provide an update in terms of data to all members of the committee, if that would help.
Thanks, Mark. Okay with that, Glenn?
Yeah, obviously, as Mark said, it highlights that there's a need perhaps to do a lot more media in Bassetlaw, because there's more than 7% of the community affected, and I know pockets, and clearly that's really important work.
Yeah, I mean, I have received phone calls and emails from people which I've just passed directly on to the team. So it's not always clear to everybody how they go about it, even though we do put stuff out on promoting it. But we're going to have our last push coming up now to make sure that we can use that money, which we've got to give up if we don't spend it, before the end of March. So I'll take on board what you said, and I'm sure the team will be looking into that. Is there any other speakers? Okay, we'll go to the vote then. And
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Would it be just possible, second? I've got an answer back regarding the voucher question that we had earlier on. So if I could pick that one up. So the people have a month to activate the voucher, but once they've activated the voucher, then it's valid for 2 years. So there's a 2-year window on it, but they need to activate it within a month. But then they're able to use it over a 2-year period.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, we'll go to the vote then. Those in favour of the recommendations, please show. Thank you, that's unanimous. So come to item 7, update on key trading standards and community matters. The recommendations on page 51, and it is 1, considers the updates and highlights any action required specifically in the respect of income generation. And number 2, considers the actions taken by the Trading Standards Service under the Regulatory and Investigatory Powers Act. Can we only change that, don't we? To be appropriate. So I'll propose the recommendation. Do I have a seconder, please?
I second that, Chairman.
Thank you. And am I going to Fiona? I believe yes. Thank you. Thanks, Fiona.
Thank you. Good morning. So an update from Trading Standards in relation to the coronavirus regulations. So the regulations for entry into venues and the wearing of face coverings will expire today, but we'll still have the self-isolation and the powers to close down a premises, event or open space that Trading Standards or the police hold. In relation to avian flu, we've still no reports of avian flu in captive birds in the county, which is really good. We have had dead birds recently found in Attenborough and Home Pierpoint, but they haven't been confirmed that their deaths have been due to avian flu at the moment. There have been 76 cases in the UK so far this year, which has been the worst year we've had for avian flu. However, the total number of migrating wild water birds has peaked now in Great Britain, and the majority of wintering water birds have arrived, hopefully. So I've got fingers crossed that we won't get any. In relation to an update on RIPA, the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, in the last 6 month period, we've had no authorisations for directed surveillance, but 2 for communications data in relation to doorstep crime and food safety. We've finished our project in relation to doorstep crime in 3 priority areas and done visits in relation to Natasha's Law, which is about allergen labelling. We've been involved in safety recalls for toys, string lights and fancy dress attire, which were flashing masks, where there was access to small button batteries for children. The community renewal funding work is going to take up a lot of resource in the next 6 months. We're working closely with the Chamber of Commerce and partners to support start-up and expanding businesses in terms of their compliance so they get things right. The first half of the project is going to focus on market surveillance in 5 key areas, the first one being the beauty industry. With this, we're going to include the new legislation surrounding the use of Botox to over 18s only. We're still battling with our income levels and reducing our costs, which have both been affected by Covid. In relation to communities work, Councillor Girling hosted a successful breakfast club for veterans and their families before Christmas, with 3 more planned in 2022. There is now an Armed Forces webpage up and running via the Armed Forces Hub. We've been getting involved in the planning for the year-long celebrations to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. There will be a report to the February Policy Committee to agree an outlined budget for the Jubilee and Nottinghamshire Day. Also, we are hoping to have a Platinum Jubilee website up and running to capture and share the events taking place across the city and county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. As a chicken owner, I wondered if you could give me an understanding of when the review would be in place for whether we carry on with the avian lockdown. My chickens are bored, senseless, and could do with a bit more fun in their lives at the moment. So if there's any information on that, it'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Fiona.
Yes, as soon as we know, obviously it's done nationally. So at the moment, the lockdown is still on, I'm afraid, for the chickens.
You'll have to go and sing to him, Mike. Yeah. Yeah. Are there any other questions for Fiona? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Fiona. We'll go to the vote then. Those in favour of the recommendations, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And it's the work programme. So, are we happy with the work programme? Is there any comments or questions for it? Okay, we're happy to approve it. Please show. Thank you. Thank you very much. Unanimous. Thank you very much. Crikey, world record. But thank you very much indeed. Close the meeting.
You can stop the broadcast.